What's up, and welcome to the Beer Garden. You know the deal. This is your landscape industry podcast that lasts as long as it takes to enjoy your favorite beverage. I'm Jason. There's Brandon. This is the Beer Garden. And before we
Hello
get
again.
started, to our American listeners, happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
To our Canadian listeners, sorry, we forgot to wish you a happy Thanksgiving like
It's
a month ago.
happy belated Thanksgiving to us.
Yeah, exactly. How you doing, Brandon?
I'm doing really good. We've had next to no snow. It's making our way through November. It's been really nice. I know that that's not been the case in Denver.
No, it has
You guys
not.
have just been getting killed from what I've heard. So
With one storm.
sorry about that.
That's like we typically we get like most our storms are like very small, like 1 to 3 inch storms, especially early in the season. Our big storms usually come like spring storms, March. But yeah,
Mm.
our first storm out of the gates here, we had parts of Denver, depending on where you were regionally, parts of our Denver that got 20 inches in this first
That
storm.
ain't right.
No.
It's hard to enjoy it while it's here. Like we have really nice temperatures, really sunny, no snow, but you just know you're going to get your comeuppance,
Yeah.
Like I've been doing this for almost 20 years, and my impression is that I don't think it's true, but it builds up. It's like the snow is just building up somewhere out there, and it's just it'll just dump on us, All you hear about is El Niños and the Farmer's Almanac, and it's hard to enjoy a nice day when people say those bad words to you.
I know the feeling. It feels like you're just putting it on layaway. Like you're just storing it for later.
Exactly. And you just know all your guys at work are kind of getting a little bit soft, the
Yeah.
muscles are atrophying, and you're like, man, when it comes, it's going to be tough on us.
Right.
So,
What are you drinking today?
this is from Jasper Brewing Co. It's Crispy Tall Boys. Hell yeah.
Oh, nice.
Jasper Brewing, yeah.
I like that can.
Sad. Yeah, I know it. It kind of. I was going to ask if you had. No, you don't. You don't have No Name brand, right?
No.
I'm pretty sure that's Canadian. It kind of looks like that. Anyway, sad thing about Jasper. Jasper is kind of like Banff. Like people would have heard of Banff. It's kind of like that, but it's more north in Alberta. And they had a big wildfire this year, and it burned down lots of the town. So it's very sad. On a somewhat funnier note, Michelle and I were in the town like the weekend, like days before the fire, and we got back to work, and then people were accusing us of maybe causing the fire or something, but that is not what happened. Anyway, that's what I'm drinking. Crispy Tall Boys. It's a Pilsner.
Nice. Drinking a Crispy Boy. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
I like that can.
Mm-hmm. Simple.
Cool.
I don't know what this 24 means. I'm just looking at that. Anyway.
24 ounces? No, that wouldn't be 24 ounces. I don't know.
I don't know either. Jamie, look that up. I wish we had a Jamie on our podcast.
We had a Jonathan for like 2 weeks, and then he was like, I guess you guys don't really need me. I'm failing.
That was a reference to Joe Rogan, if anyone knows.
Gotcha. I'm getting in the holiday spirit. So I am trying a new beer today. I've never had this one. This is from Ommegang Brewery in Cooperstown, New York. And this is a limited release that they do called Everything Nice. It is a strong blonde ale with seasonal spices and natural flavor. So
very nice.
Seems very festive. It is also 9% alcohol.
Attaboy, that is very festive.
Yeah. Check back on one of our upcoming episodes, because I have another one called Everything Naughty that I'll be drinking.
I was going to ask if it's higher alcohol, but that would be a spirit at that point.
It is. It's like 10% alcohol.
Oh, wow. Very good. Cheers. I see you've already opened yours, so that's kind of
I was saving everyone from having to see me pull out the only can opener I could find, but I'm just going to show it anyways, which is our or bottle opener, which is a can opener. It's the only one I could find in my house. So.
It's very domestic.
Mhm.
Okay, well, what are we talking about today, Jason?
Yeah, today we're going to do things a little differently. So we've been talking a lot about topics that typically are more applicable to like ownership, right? Owners in a landscape business. Not all of them, but a lot of our topics have been very owner centric. So today we are talking about making the transition from an infield role to a management role. So I think, both of us, I know, came from infield roles and we went into management roles and then eventually into ownership roles. And I think there's just, I think for listeners who maybe are in the field currently and want to be in a management role or just got moved into a management role, just kind of outlining like what to expect, um, what makes a good manager or leader, those sorts of things. And really, like, this is just as much a list of things to start doing now if you want to become a manager as it is like a list of things to do if you just got thrown into a manager role. Like, the best managers I've seen are the ones who like started doing these things and exemplified these certain traits and stuff before they ever got moved into a management role.
Of
So
course.
yeah.
I think this will also be a really good episode if you are a business owner. Don't just tune out now.
Yeah.
Especially if you're just, you have maybe one or two managers, like, whatever you call them in your business, but what maybe you should expect for the managers in your business, and share this episode with them too.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of good to set the tone, and it brings a perspective from Jason and I's businesses.
Maybe even what to look for too. If you're an
Yeah.
owner and you're considering like, bringing on your first manager or promoting someone into their first management role. I think oftentimes, the case is just like you just choose the person who has the best field skill set because you assume they're going to be the best manager because they get the infield stuff. And that's, as you'll see when we go through a lot of this stuff, like that's not always the case. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Good point, though.
Absolutely.
This is just as much for owners, not just for people wanting to move into management. Cool. So, like, one of the first things that comes to mind for me is just like kind of it at the risk of sounding woo woo, like the shift in mindset, and this is like a very real thing. Is why I say it's like I don't want it to come across as woo woo because you are like changing the type of person you are in your day to day almost in a way, right? Like it's no longer task driven so much of just like get there, dig the hole, plant the tree. Like it is.
Yeah, it's an evolution that you go through for sure. And you
Yeah.
do it, for business owners that are listening that have gone, if you're kind of a traditional start where you ran it from your garage, then you built it up over time, that you've had to evolve from the guy that's the best producer of work to someone who is managing people, and you're learning how to manage money, and you're learning all these different skills that you might not have thought you needed when you started your business. So
Absolutely.
it's necessary.
Yeah, and you really have to shift more to like seeing the big picture. Like it's okay when you're in the field to just, in fact, it's better oftentimes to put the horse blinders on and be like singular focused, right? Management's a lot different. You have to see the big picture, you have to understand the big picture. This is something actually like I can't stress enough, and I've talked to, individuals in my own organization about this. When people ask, like what can I do to move up? What can I do to move into a management role? Like one of the first things I think is just understanding the vision and the goals of the organization as a whole. Like understanding that, have a very clear understanding of it, and then starting to think about like, what can I bring to the table there? Like, how can I help this team? Because that's all we are, is one big team trying to go somewhere, right? So first of all, understanding where we're going, and then figuring out like, how can I fit in? What skill set can I bring? What are the things that I can offer to help us get there? Um, so that requires, buy into that vision and understanding of your team's role in getting there to that goal. Um, and I just think that's like critical. I think that's like step one.
Yeah.
Um, I think another thing is just embracing responsibility, right? Like that's probably one of the biggest changes. And that is like a big mind shift change that I see people struggle with sometimes, is just moving from just being accountable for your own work to now being accountable for the work of a team. Because ultimately, like if you're a leader, the buck stops with you. Like um there's a book recommendation that I'll just throw out right now that like is applicable to this whole section, or really this whole episode, called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. Excellent book. I recommend anyone who is like wants to hone their leadership skills to read this book. It's really good. Um, but the key thing there, like one of his key points, is like there's no bad teams, only bad leaders. Like ultimately, the buck stops with you. Like if your team fails, it's a reflection on you. If your team wins, it's a reflection on them. It's like the team as a whole. So like that is a big change in. Oh, I heard a siren. Drink. I think we started that drinking game, right? That is a
damn you making me get this better microphone. That never happened before. You couldn't hear me when I talked either.
right.
No, those are all really good points. I think to bring it down for someone that's, say you're a crew leader right now and you're wanting these roles, part of it is making it known. Part of it is like, hey, you have a keen interest to move up and telling people.
Mhm.
But just like it's not always clear to the superiors like how to develop people and how to move them up, and those are key things that any business should get great at. But doing some of the work for your superiors is going to make it easier on you, I think. So something like, for example, asking like, hey, is there any meetings that I could sit in on? Or like, hey, you guys are going to be planning snow routes or like mow routes or whatever coming up. Could I participate in that? I want to see how that works.
Right.
Is there any tough conversations or strategic stuff that I could just, be a fly on the wall for? Like, I really want to learn about the business. But giving actual examples is just easier. Make it easy for them to say yes to something, right?
Totally.
Not like, I'm interested in moving up. Could you tell me what I could do?
Right.
Then now you've just given them a to do.
Right. That's such a really valuable point. Like that is key, is that this is a self-driven process. Like I think it's really important to recognize, like, first of all, no one's going to make you a leader. No one can make you a leader. They might make you a manager. They might throw you in a management position, but they're not going to make you a leader. Like that's something that you earn and you develop over time. And yeah, I think that oftentimes people are thrown into a management role and they're like, why doesn't everyone respect me? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, like you just have the title, dude. Like you haven't like earned any of the other stuff yet. So
Absolutely.
kind of on that same hand, like what have you seen? Like there's good managers and bad managers, right? Like those managers who, like I was just saying, like there's the person with the title and then there's people who really lead. Like what do you see the difference between those two?
Yeah. So there's a big difference between, like, you can almost put a number to it, right? Like if you talk to someone who's making 100 grand a year or more versus someone that's making 50 grand a year or 60 or whatever, like the difference is astounding, right? Or it should be, or you might be hired into the wrong role. A lot of people do get just hired based on tenure with the company. and that's not a good option. Do not hire someone because it's easy, especially for these roles. Like, do not just, even if you're 100% sure that this individual that's been with you for years is the right person to become your operations manager or take that whatever management role. Do yourself a favor and don't rush it. Interview more people, like interview, a bunch more people, and find some other good candidates, people that you feel could also do it, and then choose that person. You'd be shocked at who you'll meet and how good people can be. So a good manager, someone that is a good leader and owns their role, they make decisions and they deal with consequences, right? Like they don't have to call you every time and like they're like, this is what I'm thinking. Like I'm thinking about ordering the laser toner, in quantities of 3 because we save $5 on each, or whatever. Like, what do you think? Especially small things like that. They make decisions, and if they make the wrong decision, they live with it. They don't need to share accountability with people. They can handle it on their own. They provide ideas to solutions. They know that it's important that they build trust and relationships with the other managers, even at their level, like side to side. Really good managers are solving problems and seeing things far out, right? Like if you think of a crew leader, their job generally is reactive, right? They're like, they get to their truck in the morning and, there's a tool that's broken and they react and fix the problem. A good manager is seeing that, there's a staffing shortage right now, or they see that, hey, one of my crew leaders is not performing and we're already short on crew leaders. I need to start, putting my ear to the ground on candidates 3 months out, 6 months out, or planning routes. It's fall. Should I start planning routes for spring already, just to see what our capacity is going to be? Like, good managers are looking much further out than bad or like lower level thinking managers. Generally, they're always learning. They're always keen to develop themselves, reading books. They're trying to get feedback from other, like their superior or other managers, on how they can improve. Maybe they're going to networking groups or peer group type situations. That's what good managers are doing. And try to look for those things if you're interviewing too, internally or externally. Bad managers, they are calling you all the time. They something goes wrong. Like, things go wrong. That's why you have managers, right? Like, if there's no problems, you don't need any managers. So when something goes wrong, they blame other people or things, like, this business you built isn't set up to handle this, or we're growing too fast. They're blaming you, they're blaming the business, they're blaming the employees that they've hired or you've hired, this crappy equipment you've given me, like whatever it may be, rather than just saying, hey, I did not prepare for this. I should have seen it coming. I'll be better next time. A bad manager is blaming and not taking ownership, and they're just reacting, solving problems today that shouldn't even be there, right?
Right.
Snow is my absolute favorite example of that, because you guys just went through it, but like a big snowstorm, it's like you win or lose a snowstorm days and weeks before the snowstorm's even in the forecast.
Yep.
It's not like if you lose in the days, it's usually because you weren't prepared. Your equipment wasn't ready. You didn't have enough guys. You didn't have enough backup guys. You didn't have enough, the trucks weren't fueled up. Everybody's leaving on the busiest day in the last 6 months to go fuel up their trucks in the morning.
Yep.
So that's a really good test usually on, snow companies that do snow anyways. I could go on, but
Yeah.
I feel like
I
I'm harping
just
on the bad managers too much.
No, it's good, but I do want to highlight some things because I think these are good things to watch out for. I think like the bad manager side of it, it's like it doesn't even necessarily mean that in fact, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they're maybe not the right fit for the management role. Like you mentioned, like a good manager is very proactive, like thinking 3 to 6 months ahead. Managers very reactive, like solving problems today. Um, like being reactive is a great skill for a crew leader. Like someone who can, to your point earlier, like show up and a tool's broken and without having to go to their manager, like react and figure out how to like, you know, make the day work without it. That's a great quality for a crew leader. Not the best for a manager. The manager needs to be the one prepping ahead.
Yep.
I also wanted to highlight, like you said, the builds trust-based relationships with other managers for like a good manager. I've seen this one a lot in like people get very protective of their roles, right? Especially if they're moved up and they're like they want to like demonstrate, but they're maybe not sure how. Maybe they don't understand these different things yet. And I see it a lot where instead of like reaching out to the peers and like building those trust-based relationships, showing them that you're reliable, instead you start getting like this finger pointing sometimes where it's like, well, this person didn't do this. Kind of goes back to the accountability thing, right? Like this
Yeah.
person didn't do this person's not doing his job well, this person's not doing that thing, and never want to like look internally. And
Or like
that's
I'm working 16 hours a day every day, like the workload, blah, blah. It's like,
yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
this is you're part of the company to manage. Like this is one of my favorite lines. One of our managers said, he said, "This is what empowerment feels like." Hector said that to a group of managers one time. I was like, dude, that's
I was going to
savage.
ask if that was Hector. That sounds like
Yeah.
Hector.
Yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Cool. Really good stuff there. So now it's like, what are some of the skills that I can start like building and working on to move into a management role with this? Like, what does that look like? What are the things that I can hone in on? Like, where do I even start?
Yeah. Generally, you know, you have to have good communication and people skills. What that does not mean, I've seen both sides of this. Like it does not mean you have to be this extroverted person that is ready to just go out in the shop in the morning and command traffic or something. You're like I'm not very comfortable with public speaking, you know, and that kind of thing. So don't think of it that way. You have to be ready to listen and work with people, and whether it's not like a friendship building exercise, but you have to be able to build close relationships with people. It's like, you know, I was going to say it's like a family, but that's kind of overused or whatever. It's just you have to be. You're going to go through the shit together. You know, you're
Yeah.
going to go through some really tough times and tough stuff together. So you need to be able to build, again, trust-based relationships with people. You need to be able to listen to them, understand, like drill down into what the issues they're having are, and coach them beyond where they're at today. And coaching is another word that's used a lot, and that to me means you know, there's training and there's coaching. Coaching is like I'm bringing someone up a level to a level they don't even know what it looks like necessarily. They don't know what skill sets they need. You do. So you're taking them to a place that they don't even know if they can get to, and that takes relationship building and all kinds of trust and dedication from a manager. So certainly communication, people skills, motivational skills. You know, like you always have your chin up. no matter how bad things are, if you're a manager, to the people on your team, right? So nobody wants to go to battle or work hard for someone that is just like, we're screwed, like imagine a sports team and the coach is in the locker room just like, these guys are way better than us, there's no friggin' way. Or like, we worked way too hard last week, let's get practice, or whatever.
Right.
Nobody can follow someone like that. So being able to motivate people and part of it's recognizing achievements and providing good feedback and having a positive culture and all of those things that you'd think of, but being able to really motivate people and be there on the toughest days, at the end of the long treacherous snow day with coffees and pizza, or whatever it may be. Team motivation is a big one. I would say, you're going to have a lot of conflict resolution. Like, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. You have to be having some of the toughest conversations of your life with people. There's a quote I'm about to butcher by Tim Ferriss. And it's funny because Benji just shit all over Tim Ferriss in a previous episode, but I like him.
Well, no, he shit all over the 4-hour work week.
Okay.
And the culture that developed from it.
Sure. It basically says that, like, your progress in life is directly correlated to the amount of uncomfortable conversations you're willing to have. And you can think about that, whether it's with your team or your boss or your parents or your friends. If you steer away from those things all the time, you stay fairly stagnant, and you're going to have a lot of those. And you are the person that says what needs to be said or does what needs to be done, right? Everyone's looking at you. They're all, they've all made friends with this person that is just not performing, and you're the one that has to terminate them, or you're the one that has to correct course with them. And those things are really hard to handle, but you've got to get great at those tough conversations. Kind of just got to be bold, and the best managers, I think, steer directly into those uncomfortable situations and address them quickly. They don't let them fester, and those things can last in companies for years and drag you down for years and years. So those are real killers. Another one I would say is just decision making, problem solving. We kind of touched on this already, but just being really confident in the decisions that you make, even if they're not always clear. And then being able to play both sides of things. Like, you're kind of, you play for both teams, So especially in a lot of management roles in trades businesses, one side is the field, and you're representing a bunch of crew leaders and technicians, laborers, workers. The other side is like the office. The office wants you to have better financial performance and kill it on the hours on your maintenance contracts, and all your crews are like struggling because they don't have enough work right now, or the hours are too long, or whatever it may be. You're stuck between those two worlds, and you need to really manage them well. And it's a lot of communication and telling the office why it is this way, and telling the staff why it is this way, and rallying everyone kind of together as one, so that there's not this us versus them mentality that develops. So those things are impossibly hard, and these are things that you just don't understand when you go from being like a technician every day, whether you're whether you're a crew leader, supervisor, whatever type field role you are doing the trade, you just don't you just haven't had to deal with those types of things and develop those skill sets yet. So those are coming.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think like a lot of what you just talked about through here comes down to like a lot of people sum it up as like EQ, right? But like that's
What's that?
required. EQ is like emotional intelligence, right? And like that again sounds very
AI?
woo woo, but like it's not IQ, it's EQ. And it's
Oh,
basically the ability to understand like other people, like have empathy, all those things, but understand other people and like what their thought process is and like where they're coming from is critical for all of this. Like just to even establish yourself as a leader, like I said earlier, like the role is or the title is given, right? But like the respect is earned and like all those different
yeah.
levels. So you really got to learn um you know on a case by case scenario. You lead so many people, but you really need to understand where you're at with each of the individuals on your team. Like with this person, they only respect me because they have to right now because of the role. So like what can I do to like build on that? Well, I'm going to first work on establishing like the relationship. Like I'm going to find a common ground. I'm going to just establish a relationship. I'm going to like, get them to kind of just respect me as an individual. Then I'm going to move on to like getting them to respect me because of the performance and like what I deliver to them and the team and those sorts of things, right? Like the results that I deliver. Um, those sorts of things. So like there's a lot that goes into just understanding like all the ways that we interact, and you have to consider all those things and each one of those things that Brandon just mentioned, like how to motivate your team, how to resolve the conflicts. Like you really need to step outside of yourself and be able to understand these other things. So some like a really good book for that, another book recommendation is The 5 Levels of Leadership. Like I'm kind of butchering some of his concepts here as I throw them out, but like that is a really great book. And then I'll throw out the 1 Minute Manager too. That's like an old classic that I would read for some of these tips here. Um, so like really good stuff there, Brandon. I feel like starting to understand like all the kind of skills, soft and hard skills that are going to be required. But like, what's this role going to look like? Like, I'm so used to being in the field. I'm so used to the day to day. Like, I think one of the biggest things is like, it's a shock when you move into one of these roles and all of a sudden it's like, my day to day looks completely different. Like, this is where that like breakdown happens where you're like, man, I was like
Yeah.
awesome in the field. I can like, I can build a manifold for an irrigation system in no time flat. And I like totally understand all the steps of that, but I'm struggling here. And it's because like your day to day looks completely different. Like, you've got to
Well,
start to what's
yeah.
that?
I mean, just ask your staff what they think you do every day. They think you just dog it every day, right? You're
Yeah.
just like taking checks to the bank and then enjoying the money.
Yeah.
I think,
Having a margarita or two.
which hopefully you are a couple of the days, but it's they really just don't get it, and that's okay. How would they? You haven't given them
Right.
the job yet. So um, there's a lot of things coming if you're I'm thinking of mostly small businesses when we're talking about these things, and that's kind of where I've enjoyed living, is a kind of 50 employee and less sort of life for the last 20 years. But I would say some of the coolest things that I've seen happen is when we've taken people that are, crew leaders in our company, and people that have just, they've just been technicians all their life, and we've brought them into this business environment, and they're sitting at a boardroom table now, right? And they're carrying a huge wallet for the company. It's like, hey, here you go. You were a crew leader yesterday. Today, you're responsible for $1.5 million or something in revenue, and all the staff and all the customers that go with that, right? And it's really neat to see people's, financial literacy. They start to speak the language of business, and you really, it's really cool when you're inside of a company because you get to learn from other people versus just starting a business on your own and struggling to figure these things out on your own, as Jason and I did. Not that one way's better than the other, but it's just you start to really evolve as a business person and as a person. Like, you start to learn a whole new world. So you're learning about finances, budgeting, profit margins, cash flow, all these different things in the financial world. You're focusing on data. So you're making a real impact on a business at these levels, right? You're like learning what KPIs are and how to affect them. You're just given all this trust. It's like, okay, here's your part of the business. Now go manage it, right? Let's see how you do. And you fail miserably in some ways, and you learn all these things. So it's a really hard shift from the field to management. Oftentimes you're changing to a mentality that is, you're changing from like hourly, and you go home at the end of the day and you don't really think about the business, after 5 o'clock or whatever, to just an always on mentality. Now your employees are texting you at 5 a.m, saying they're sick today. And you're just like, getting up and making coffee and now you have a problem to figure out before you've even gotten your truck to go to work. So you're switching that.
Huge one for small businesses too. Like,
Yeah.
you like managers in like a massive corporation, that's a little bit of a different world. Like, you're still very much an employee, like clock in at 9, clock out at 5, and that's your kind of day to day. Like, in a small business, especially, like what I've seen is managers are like, they're business owners of their own little division, right? Like, they own their own piece of the business, and they are living this. Like, there is no 9 to 5. They're thinking about it before they go to bed at night. They're like waking up early. They're dealing with texts and calls. Like, that's, you nailed that. Like, that is, especially in small businesses, managers are living it.
Yeah. It's a partnership mentality.
Yeah.
Like, you're in it together with the owner.
Mhm.
That's the thing that the owner of your company, assuming you're not in like the less than 5% of landscape companies that are humongous. Yeah, and the owner of the company, like, he wants to pay you to take some stress off. Like, that person, she can't grow the business anymore because there's literally not more minutes in the day, and they just need someone they can trust to just manage that part of the business, so they can have a partner to build the business with, right? Like, someone that it feels like they're in this together with, and they know if someone's sick today, you've got it. You're not going to call them at 5:05 after the person texted in to see, what do I do? One employee called in sick. So you can definitely, especially in the first year or two, expect, just extreme discomfort, questioning life decisions, just because it's going to be the hardest at first, right?
Yep.
And maybe forever if you never learn, but at first, especially because you've never really had to manage your priorities and time and all those things. You've had people tell you what to do each day and give you a schedule. So it's highly stressful and highly rewarding, and you evolve to a next level. You become way more valuable to the company and out in the market in the future. So you make way more money, over time, maybe not immediately. And you get empowered. It's all the things that you told yourself when you're a crew leader and you're like, these damn managers, they don't know what the hell they're doing. I would do it this way. Okay, well, now's your chance. Do it your way. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, that's and I would just like I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this like without sounding just like a condescending owner, but it's like one of the things that I've seen with
You
this
came off the shovel as well, Jason, so it's
yeah.
okay.
Thanks. At the beginning of this, like we talked about the good manager, bad manager, and as we're going through all these key points, one of the things I'm thinking about is like you talked about that like wage break, right? Like good manager 100K and above, bad manager 60K, somewhere in there, right? And I'm just
Canadian
thinking,
dollars, by the way.
right. But I'm just more than anything, it's a measuring stick, right? But I'm just thinking of like the response to that I would hear from a bad manager, which is like, well, yeah, if I made over 100K, like I would totally have all those traits. Like, no, those guys who make 100K, like they got there because they deserved it. Like they demonstrated all these things. They worked hard to get there. They did all these things, and they were at one point extremely uncomfortable and extremely stressed, and like underpaid probably at some point in their career, like, and then they like just grind through that, and then they figure it out, and then they come out the other side and they start like it really is like an exponential snowball effect. Like once you
Yeah.
start to get it, like it really does build quite easily, because these are skill sets, and they're skill sets that you carry with you outside of your role here at this one business.
Yeah,
Like
that's a good point.
yeah.
You start getting comfortable, you start having uncomfortable conversations with your friends and family that you never would
Totally.
have had before.
Oh yeah, I have
You know?
uncomfortable or conversations with Brandon all the time.
Yeah, oh, yeah. You get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's important to just remember, like, outside of the moment when you just hate your life, you worked way too many hours forever, and the business isn't going well, you're not getting good results, whatever the case may be, to think forward to just, you're if you make it through this, you're evolving, right? Like
Yeah.
you are upgrading personally and at work. And whether you work for this company or another company in the future, frankly, it's like, this is what you need to go through. Like you need to go through the shit to become the person that you want to be, and make the money you want to make, and have the responsibility and the role that you want. All of those things, they take like what Jason's been through, sleeping on the couch in his shop to make things work. It's like, you have to just go through that stuff. And I think telling yourself that while you're in it is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So,
That's a really good point. Like reminding yourself of that when you're in it, because it's a fun thing for us to talk about now and reflect on and be like, huh, yeah, like sleeping on the couch, or like working out of my garage, starting this thing here. Like it's fun to talk about now. At the time, it's all encompassing. It's all you can think about. Everything sucks. Like you got to remind yourself that you're doing this for a reason, and hard times build strong people. So
that's right.
it's yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
for sure. And all your friends are perpetuating it too, because
Totally.
they're not managers, or well, not all of them,
Yeah.
like your friends and family are like, what are you doing? You make 60K a year, you're working 100 hours a week.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, that is stupid. I should quit. But it's like they work at their shift supervisor at Walmart or something, nothing wrong with that, but
Right.
don't take advice from someone who's not where you want to be.
That's a really good point that I hadn't thought of, is like one of the kind of I don't want to call it a hack, but one of the things that you can do is like surround yourself with people who have a similar mindset, and who are maybe even some people who have gone through what you're currently going through and come out the other side. Like that is insanely valuable. Like find those people and latch on to them, and learn from them, and let them be the ones that you're bouncing it off of, because everyone else is just going to tell you to quit.
Yeah. Agreed.
Cool. I think we can kind of cruise through some of these other ones, but like one of the things I'm thinking of is just like that you've already touched on this quite a bit, but like now you're in a role where you need to like building trust is critical. Building trust with your peers. We talked about that earlier, but building trust with the team that you lead is very very important, and it doesn't happen overnight, and it certainly doesn't happen just because you got the title, as I've said time and time again. Like you
Yeah.
have to earn that trust, and part of that is like empowering them. This is what empowerment feels like. Like give them the ability to like shine and to demonstrate that they can do what they can do. But in order for them to be successful at that, like in order for you to truly be able to delegate and like have the confidence that the people that you're delegating to are going to be able to execute, like again, it comes back to planning. You need to like have a plan to make sure that they're skilled up. You need to train and mentor and coach them and make sure that they understand what's required of them, what even like success looks like. You need to establish that trust with them. So like this becomes like a personal thing, right? Like you need to understand that, create a culture where team members feel trusted, they feel responsible for owning their role, and then you can delegate, right? Like those are the like it's not just there's a difference between dumping and delegating. And like just taking tasks and saying, here, go do this, that's dumping. But saying like, hey, here's the expectations of your role, here's what success looks like, here's like how to do these things, here's the rhythm that we're going to check in on. If you have questions, you can come to me anytime. But like here's my expectations, like eventually you can do this without needing to come to me every day for every little thing. Like
That's right.
that's a big difference than just like here's a list of tasks, go do this. So
Totally.
yeah, I think that that's a critical part of it. Anything to add about from your side on like that building trust and delegating side?
Yeah. If you're bringing someone new into the role, kind of a 30, 60, 90 day,
Hmm.
maybe I'd add 7 days to that. Like, here's what I need you to be able to do in the first 7 days, and 30, 60, 90.
Yeah.
Just bullet points. Don't make it too wishy-washy, like a single page kind of thing. Depending on the management level that this person is in, just like it's up to you. Like, like I don't know. Some of my team would probably disagree with me on this, but my approach is almost always like, here's what I expect.
Yeah.
Onboard yourself.
Yeah.
Like you're hired as a manager, so take from me what you need.
Yeah.
Like, you pull me aside and take the information from me. That's what I'm expecting. Don't be the person that is hanging on to and controlling everything. You don't need the person if you're going to just do everything.
Right.
Give them trust. It's kind of I don't know what the saying is, give them enough rope to do something, but not to hang themselves, whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
So, let them make some mistakes, let them screw up some jobs, let them screw up some scheduling. Ultimately, they should feel the pain for their mistakes, not you. So yeah, don't hold them back. Like, you're just going to stand in their way if they have to come to you with everything, and they can't, like, pass your level or whatever, and they don't have your trust. So
I remember when Jocko Willink spoke at the BTA Winter Summit. It was when we had the virtual one during COVID, and he talked about building guardrails, right? Like rather than laying out every step of the path, just put guardrails in place. Like those are the things that like stop them from driving completely off the road and crashing your business, right? So it's like in a very simple, kind of overly simplified example of that is like decisions over $20,000 need to be run by me, sort of thing, right? Where it's like
that's a great
the,
example. Yeah.
it's a
Especially for
guard,
new managers.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a guardrail that you're putting in place where it's like everything else you don't need to bother me with. In fact, don't like make the decision, whatever that number is. But like $20,000 in this example is where you're driving off the road. That could have detrimental effects to our business. So like that is where you need to come to me. So set the guardrails and then let them operate within those guardrails. Is a big one, I think, for that. And that does build trust, right? Like the more they can drive, the more that they kind of start to trust themselves. They trust you, and it shows that you're trusting them. There's another good book as it relates to trust and building a team and those sorts of things. And it's called The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. I think that's a must read for especially like your leadership team. If you're starting to establish a management leadership team, that's a really great book to read.
I'll say that book can tear your team apart if you are a dysfunctioning team.
Yeah. Yes.
It's like a fictional story. And as you read through it, you can't help but assign names of people in your team to the people in the book.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, if your team sucks at the moment, you read that book and you're like, we're screwed.
Yeah.
It's excellent book, but maybe the business owner should read it first and then, make a few adjustments, roll it out slowly.
That's a good call. All right. So again, kind of like cruising through this one, but this is really important. We've talked about this in other episodes, but one of the things that I think like it hits every single person that I've seen move from an infield role into a management role is like how focused on time management you have to be.
Totally.
Like that is like every single person to a T. Like that's one of the things I see them early on. Like, oh, I wasn't prepared for like this level. Because now again, you're giving them all that rope. And it's really easy to be like, oh, well, I'm going to focus on this thing over here. I'm going to focus on this thing. I'm going to focus on, and no real prioritization, no real time management.
Everybody wants the flexibility until they have it,
Exactly. Yeah.
There's like, and as the superior, if you're the business owner or the manager hiring a manager or whatever, the thing that you could get really good at is helping coach people on priority management and time management, because it's one of the first things that someone that comes out of the field is going to struggle with. They're not used to it. They're used to having a schedule or some fairly tight bounds on what they need to get done that day or week. And now all of a sudden, they have all these things to manage and just fit into their day. And, they'll come to you and say, look, I can't do this. I'm working, from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. every night. And, the truth typically, I've always found the truth is like, you could fit this into like 20 hours less a week. Yeah. You're just not. And you're also like, you definitely delivered like a gas can to a crew, and that took you 2 hours on Monday, or right. whatever. And instead of getting your timesheets approved or your estimates done or whatever, like you are still reacting and just going out and doing the things that are easy and whatever you're kind of used to doing. That's the typical thing. So getting some really good, like priority management and time management, totally different things. Most crew leaders in techs and those, those type people, they don't block schedule their time on calendars or anything like that. And I mean, I remember despising the idea of that. Like, I don't want to live this like terribly structured life. Like, what a crap idea that is. And the reality is, it's like, well, then you're just not going to get stuff done, and you're going to work every hour of every day, right? If you don't learn how to do this. Right. Yeah.
And go listen to the episode with Benji, because we talk about this a lot in there. Like, it's one of the 12 factors that Benji recognized in like highly successful entrepreneurs is priority management and time management. And the number one excuse always is like, well, I'm like having to do all these different things, and even if I build a schedule, like I'm never going to be able to stick to it. Like, that's poor planning. That's poor prioritization. That's like that's not a reason to not do priority and time management. It just means you're not good at it yet. And no one is at the beginning, by the way. It takes some time to get
Mhm.
used to it.
I
The other
still
side,
struggle with it constantly.
totally. The other thing that I would say there is one of the things that I've seen, there's almost like layers of this, right? Like at first, it's just like, I don't understand at all how to prioritize or how to do time management. That's the base level. Then you start to get that. But then you just are like prioritizing and building into your block calendar, like the tasks, the hard tasks to get your role done, right? That's it. Like I'm going to do this, and this, and that's it. And what I've seen a lot of people fall into is then they get good at that, and then they're comfortable. But like that's it. They just plateau, and they're not building in that time for that development side of it. Because again, you're a manager now. No one's going to spoon feed you anymore. No one's going to tell you what to do or like what you should be working on. And you don't want to just plateau. There's other levels for you to reach out to. So like developing your skill sets, continuing to do that, your personal development, all that sort of stuff, taking courses, networking, going to industry events, whatever those things, whatever it looks like for your role, like do not expect someone else to tell you what to do. To be like, hey, it'd be really nice if you went and took this course on XYZ,
Yeah.
right? Like you need to do that and you need to build it into your prioritization. Like that goes back to the very first thing we talked about, which is like understanding the overall direction and vision of where we're all going as a team and how you fit into that. And if you want to continue growing and you want to continue contributing and adding more and more and more, then you need to be the one to recognize like, cool, I see a need here in the business. Like it would be really sweet if someone was, I don't know, like handling like if we could lean out our operations a little bit. Like I'm going
Yeah.
to make that my to do. I'm going to go figure that out. I'm going to take a course on it. I'm going to read 2-second lean. I'm going to like whatever the thing is, and I'm going to figure that out and go do it.
Yeah, I'll add that the problem is almost always building the people below you.
Yeah.
Almost always. Like,
Yeah.
I would say always. um, it's like teach if you're a ops manager or like an account manager or something. It's teaching the crew leaders and the operations people and building trust with them and not holding their hand through every little thing. Let them problem solve on their own. Let them be leaders, so that you're not bringing the gas can or they went to rake leaves and they forgot rakes or whatever. You're bringing it out to them. Build them up and your life will become immensely easier and you'll have nothing to do but focus on the high level tasks.
Right.
That 1 minute manager is like a super, super easy read. Like it's kind of like a Sunday morning with your coffee kind of thing. And you're basically done the book. And it's another like fictional story, but it goes through the same thing. It's like the best manager in the company just has like the easiest job. He just has this awesome team that knows what to do. And that's sort of the moral of the story. Just focus on your boss is managing and developing you. If you're managing and developing the people under you to be better, your job gets easier and easier and easier. And now you're taking Fridays off to go skiing or whatever.
We're all just hiring people to take things off our to-do list. Like that's all we're all doing. Like
right.
we literally could like you and I could just be a company and go out and mow the yards and book the jobs and answer the phone. But like at a certain
Mhm.
point we realize like that gets us to this level and I can't really afford the lifestyle that I want at that. So I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have all those
It's
things.
just not interesting anymore. You get to the next level of thing,
And you start adding people, and all of us are doing that no matter what level you're at. Like you're all doing
That's
that.
right.
So finally, to wrap things up, I just wanted to very quickly touch on some of the like common challenges that are run into in this like transition as you're moving to a manager. And I think like one of them to kick things off is like kind of a personal one, right? And I think this is one that'll live with you probably forever. It depends on your personality type. I've only met a couple
Yeah.
people that don't have this, but
If you're a salesperson,
yeah,
this won't matter.
if you're a painter, this isn't going to apply to you.
Or roofer. Roofer's the
Yeah,
same.
roofer, yeah. Like you're overly confident, so this won't apply to you. But like for the rest of us, imposter syndrome is a very real thing, right? So like that is like thinking that you don't belong where you're at and that you didn't deserve it or don't deserve it. And like you're just waiting for people to figure you out. The first thing I would say is like that doesn't go away. We're here talking every week about these different things, and every week I think to myself like, who the hell am I to be telling people how to do this particular thing? But if you like, the thing I would say is just like keep that in check, recognize that it's normal to feel outside of your comfort zone, and it's like that is the best way to start building confidence is to just push yourself outside of that comfort zone time and time again. You'll start building confidence, and also just recognize like, generally like you're feeling that way because you are outside of your comfort zone, but you have some level of experience. Someone saw that and someone like, believed in that. So like lean into that. That'll certainly help.
That's cute, Jason. Just kidding. It's true. Yeah, that's actually kind of that happens a lot, I'm sure, in every industry, but I only know the trades. As a business owner, in the trades business, many of us are not, didn't go through a bunch of education or something to learn what we're doing.
Right.
We just drug ourselves through the mud and then like promoted ourselves, honestly, barely knowing what we're doing along the way a lot of the times.
Totally.
We're just, we say yes and we figure it out. That's the entrepreneurial way.
I've still got no idea what I'm doing.
Super uncomfortable the whole time, pretty much. Yeah. Anyway, I guess some other common challenges is just, you face a lot of resistance from your team. Like they're not all entrepreneurial minded. They're not all, if you're enough, I guess if you're sharing your vision with the team and your vision is really big, they're just like, how the hell are we going to do that? Right. Like you're telling them in a few years, we're going to be triple the size and we're going to be out of my garage and we're going to be, buying a yard and have 25 trucks and whatever. Yeah. Like, you talk like that, your team does not, they don't necessarily all think that way. Hopefully some of your leadership team helps you bring that down to earth and put traction to it, but expect some pushback. That's all I'm going to say. Expect pushback on your ideas. That's good. And to kind of go home sometimes thinking like, man, these guys don't believe in me or something. Yeah. I mean, there's people trying to get us to the moon and build like terraform it and shit right now. So imagine what that team's saying.
Right. Yeah. And then lastly, like this is the one that's always commonly brought up, but like if you're being transitioned from a team and being promoted into management, there's going to be some level of weirdness there. Typically where you are kind of having to establish yourself as the manager. I think that the key thing there is just go back and listen to the things we talked about earlier in the podcast. If you earn their trust, if you like demonstrate that you are going to help them succeed and you make it about the team more than about you, you're not going to have an issue with that. Like, especially if you started doing that before you became a manager. Like, that's why I think it's so important to like take these things, start implementing them before you even become a manager. Then it'll be like seamless. You get moved into a management position and everyone on the team will be like, well, of course he did. Like that makes total sense. He was already leading the team. Like now he just has the title. That's the best way to go about it. So I'll leave it at that. I think this has been good. I'm not even going to go back and recap everything because there was so much in here. I think like anything for you to add? Anything that we didn't cover?
It's we're trying to terraform Mars, not the moon. I made a mistake there. I'm a simple landscaper.
I didn't
Just pay attention to the news, and that's it.
I didn't call you out. I was going to let you have it. We could probably terraform the moon. I don't know.
Not drinking 9% alcohol beers all day like you.
No, I'm barely hanging on.
Okay.
9% beer, and I made it through. Cool. The one thing I would leave this on is just remember that like every awesome manager you see started out like going through the shit. Like they had to learn all this. They got bumps, they got bruises, and they like got banged up along the way. The key is like that grit, that grind, that resilience, and just like pushing through that. And yeah, I mean, keeping in mind the things that we chatted about. So on that note, it's last call. Let's wrap it up. Cheers to you.
Yep. Chug that thing.
Yep.
All right. I'm going to pretend that's done.
Okay. Good. All right. Well, as always, thank you for tuning into the Beer Garden. If you've got a success story, if you've got an awesome manager that you want to highlight, comment on this. Maybe we can have them as a guest and talk about some of these things. And
cool.
tell us what beer you were drinking when you were listening to this, or what beverage you were drinking. Doesn't have to be a beer. And as always, thanks for tuning in, and cheers.
Thanks, Jay. Cheers.